So guys, this video explain how Kennedy Agyapong won law court or Anas failed to Kennedy at the high court. Uh, if you could remember, Anas released a video on some of the lawyers who were caught in the video taking bribe here and there, and Kennedy Agyapong also brought a video on who watches the Watchman. Because of that, Anas sued Kennedy Agyapong and they went to court. It was this on the 15th of March when they solved the matter, no, or the judges sit on the matter where Kennedy Agyapong won against Anas Arimeya. So guys, subscribe and watch the full.
Called what? Patriotism. We are looking at rewiring the mindset of our people. It's all about the mindset. If the mindset of the average African is right, every other thing will be righted. Watch me now. So many of our leaders are only concentrating on the physical, tangible things that they can see and touch. Roads, schools, hospitals. They are not looking at the intangible one. Right there. The mindset. But once that mindset is worked on and righted, Africa would be the capital of the world. We have the power. If you agree, say yes, Rasta. This is the Black Pot, aka Kukushonamo. Here we don't criticize. But once in a while we do. Only that to build and not to destroy. This is the Black Pot, aka Kukushonamo. This is the Black Pot and time for action. Today we have 5 very solid stories we want to bring up to you. Number 1. Watch it. Watch it. It's rolling. Anas Armiyao Anas falls flat to Kennedy Agyapong. Who is Anas Armiyao Anas? This is the man. An investigative journalist. He's one man so many Ghanaians love and appreciate. He's one man who has worked very hard in the past and even now to be able to bring some level of decency in the Ghanaian society. His mantra is very simple. Name and shame the bad guys. But there has been one man who has ardently stood against his methods. This is Kennedy Agyapong. He is vying to become the flag bearer of his NPP party. And a lot of people are fighting him. According to him, the president himself doesn't seem to like him too much. He wants to be the flag bearer of his party. And he hopes to move on to become the president of this country. In fact, Anas Armiyao Anas sued this man, Kennedy Agyapong, in 2018, and the case lingered. It only ended yesterday, Wednesday, the 15th day of March 2023. Interesting. Now let us look at the details of the story. Court dismisses Anas's 25 million Ghana cedi defamation suit against Kennedy Agyapong. Do me a favor, come here. Watch this. The Accra High Court has dismissed the 25 million defamation suit against Kennedy Ohini Agyapong brought by investigative journalist Anas Armiyao Anas. The judge, Justice Eric Ban, held that Anas Armiyao Anas failed to prove that Kennedy Agyapong defamed him by airing the documentary Who Watches the Watchman, but rather the documentary exposed shady deals that Anas and his associates were involved in. This was after Anas in 2018 sued the New Patriotic Party member of parliament for allegedly defaming him. Anas prayed to the court to award 25 million Ghana cedis against Mr. Agyapong to compensate him for the defamatory material published against him by the MP. The court concluded that what Anas is engaged in is not investigative journalism, but rather investigative terrorism. And that Agyapong was justified to call Anas a blackmailer, corrupt, and an extortionist, and evil. I find the claims by the plaintiff, Anas Armiyao Anas, meritless and they are hereby dismissed. Justice Ban ruled. Listen, come here. Come here. Anas Armiyaw Anas sued him in 2018. The matter went to court and it lingered for 5 years. Kennedy Agyapong, according to this ruling, has won and he has been talking. What has Kennedy Agyapong said? Kennedy Agyapong speaks after defeating Anas in court. A senior central member of parliament, Kennedy Agyapong, has said that his legal victory against investigative journalist Anas Armiyaw Anas is a victory for former president of the Ghana Football Association. That's GFA, Kwesi Nyantakyi, who was captured in Anas's investigative work dubbed number 12, which uncovered rots in Ghana football. The Accra High Court on Wednesday, March 15, dismissed the 25 million defamation suit against Kennedy Ohini Agyapong brought by investigative journalist Anas Armiyaw Anas. Come here. The judge, Justice Eric Ban, held that Anas Armiyaw Anas failed to prove that Ken Agyapong defamed him by airing the documentary Who Watches the Watchman, but rather the documentary exposed shady deals that Anas and his associates were involved in. This was after Anas in 2018 sued the New Patriotic Party member of parliament for allegedly defaming him. Anas prayed the court to award 25 million Ghana cedis against Mr. Agyapong to compensate him for the defamatory material published against him by the MP. The court concluded that what Anas Armiyaw Anas is engaged in is not investigative journalism, but what? Investigative terrorism. And that Kennedy Agyapong, listen attentively, is justified to call Anas a blackmailer, a corrupt person, an extortionist, an evil. That's an evilous person. That's what he said. Now, speaking to journalists after the court hearing, Mr. Kennedy Agyapong said, we have to be bold to speak the truth. Anas goes ahead to allegedly defame people and gets away. It is only in this country that a journalist covers his face to go and give witness while Supreme Court judges are sitting there. This man was in court. And here it's almost like saying, you see what I've been saying all this while? Listen, to those of us who did not follow the number 12 documentary that Anas Armiyaw Anas released, the documentary saw the former president of the GFA, Ghana Football Association, this man who had been in there for a very long time, taking money from a supposed investor. And we heard this man in the documentary saying that he would help this foreigner come to Ghana and together they would take over the whole of the country. He also talked about other businesses he was engaged in. Later we heard that Oponwia had also gone to the same location as plotted by Anas to meet all these people, name them and shame them. We all saw that documentary. Now the judge says, in fact, it is not investigative journalism, it is rather investigative terrorism. Come here, let's analyze it. Kennedy Agyapong says, this is the only man in the world who covers his face and goes to court. Of course, he's protecting his identity. It's accepted. He is protecting his identity. The kind of work he does is very, very dangerous, especially when we live in a country where people are so corrupt, yet they do not want their evilous acts to be spread out on the streets. In America, in England, the courts would give equal opportunities to other citizens who are involved in acts like this, and their identities will be sealed. In several occurrences, we have seen how people have gone to court and we don't see them in court. It's their lawyers who are representing them because their identities must be sealed. Other times, they are asked to testify in camera and so many other things. So this is not a crime. But the interesting thing I want to share with you right now is, having lost this suit for now, what is Anas Armiyaw Anas saying? The Tiger IPI, which is Anas Armiyaw Anas's outfit, has responded. And I want us to look at this. Expand it so we can read it better. Come here. Come. Expand it. Let's see if we can read it better. Now, when you read what Anas Armiyaw Anas has written here, Tiger IPI is very simple. They have heard that, yes, they have lost the case, but they are asking questions. Now, this case from 2018 has gone into the hands of two other judges. This is the third one, Eric Ma, handling this case. Now, who chose this lawyer, or who chose this judge? Tiger IPI, Africa's leading private investigative firm. And it says, statement of the judgment of Justice Eric Ba in the case of Anas Armiyaw Anas versus Kennedy Agyapong, suit number GJ892/18. That means in 2018 it started. Today, Wednesday, 15th March 2023, a high court presided over by Eric Ba J dismissed a defamation action filed by Anas Armiyaw Anas of Tiger PI in 2018 against Kennedy Agyapong MP. The entire judgment was read in open court. 2. The court established that Mr. Agyapong indeed defamed Anas, but in a bizarre twist concluded that the so-called documentary Who Watches the Watchman was an absolute justification, thereby absolving Mr. Agyapong of any liability. Number 3, we find the decision of the court an unfortunate travesty of justice and very inimical to the administration of justice and fairness. If for nothing at all, Mr. Agyapong made an allegation of murder against Mr. Anas. There is absolutely nothing contained in the said documentary which alludes to the commission of murder or an allegation of the commission of murder by Mr. Anas. Thus, the documentary cannot provide any justification for an allegation of murder in the wildest imagination. Yet, the judge conveniently ignored this obvious fact and the fact that Mr. Anas is not a suspect for murder and is not under investigation for murder. This case traveled through the hands of 3 judges, with Justice Ba being the latest assigned to the case. Instance of Kennedy Agyapong. It means Kennedy Agyapong was the one who chose this judge to sit on the case, according to what we are reading here. Throughout the trial, Mr. Agyapong displayed absolute disdain and disrespect of the court and the lawyers of Anas, but all attempts to cite him for contempt hit a dead end. Number 5, we note that Mr. Agyapong attended court in the company of Mr. Kwesi Nyantakyi, as you were told earlier. That's the former president of the GFA, who Anas was able to nail in a documentary known as Number 12. And of course, he was taken out of office. But see his punishment, who has been banned for 15 years from all football-related activities. Tiger PI. Tiger IPI and our CEO, Anas Armiyaw Anas, remain resolute in our fight against corruption in the Ghanaian society in the service to God and country. And it ends. Hallelujah. Interesting. Wow. Come here. So Anas Armiyaw Anas and the Tiger IPI, they are alleging that Kennedy Agyapong was the one who chose this last judge to sit on the case. In fact, they intercepted a certain letter written by Kennedy Agyapong saying that he wanted that judge to sit on the case. And my big question to them, why did they not fight this earlier? But they believed that they had overwhelming evidence against Kennedy Agyapong. They had over 20 allegations against Kennedy Agyapong, and all of them fell flat in the wake of this judgment. Anas Armiyao Anas says he will never stop fighting corruption in the country. But this seems to be a dent on the image of Anas. Or what do you think? Do you see some corruption somewhere? Who actually chose this judge to sit on the case? Do we have a letter to show that Kennedy Agyapong actually wrote that letter and the CJ, that's the Chief Justice, decided to handpick this judge as dictated to him by Kennedy Agyapong? He sat on the case and he ignored all the merits of what Anas presented and nailed him and gave Kennedy Agyapong the leeway, the right to call him corrupt, evil, an extortionist, and so on and so forth. The judge went ahead to say, what you are doing is not investigative journalism. It is called investigative terrorism. I don't think I agree. I don't agree. In fact, when I heard some of these things, as somebody who is a backbencher, it smacks of some personal vindictiveness against Anas. That's what I think. It sounds so personal. What you are doing is not investigative journalism. What you are doing is called investigative terrorism. Anas has been endorsed by the BBC. CNN also shows his work. When President Obama came into this country, he applauded him. I'm not sure all these entities will go ahead to applaud an investigative terrorist. Why is it that we have a problem with this? Is it politically underpinned? Is somebody somewhere angry that his best friend has been nailed or his best friends have been caught in the web? In fact, Kennedy Agyapong, after this ruling, said that the president Nana Akufo-Addo and his vice president Bawumia must come out publicly and apologize for sacking Edu Buahin. You remember Edu Buahin in the Ministry of Finance, in Anas's latest expose, this guy was caught in it, and the president had to sack him. They caught him bragging about taking money to help the vice president with his campaign. If this is not journalism, I don't know what it is. If we are going to continue like this, I am afraid that well-meaning Ghanaians are all going to throw their hands up in despair. Remember what the former president Atamil said. He said, thank you so much to Anas Armiyao Anas. Today we are able to see that some people are hiding behind masks. Before this president, Nana Akufo-Addo, came into power, Kennedy Agyapong's president, the NPP's president, what did he say? That he would use the Anas principle to catch the bad guys. That was what Nana Akufo-Addo said before he became president. He's somebody who respects Anas Armiyao Anas. And he's a senior lawyer, even though many people say he has no certificate of law. Senior lawyer. He doesn't see it as investigative terrorism. Where did we go wrong? Is Anas a thorn in the flesh of the bad guys? Or better still, is he corrupt sometimes? I'm asking. Because Kennedy Agyapong says he has enriched himself and made so much money from blackmailing people. But let's look at Kennedy Agyapong. With all respect, Kennedy Agyapong's greatest power is to sit on his TV or radio and mention the names of people involved in corruption with no evidence or very little evidence. He said that about Kweku Baako. Kweku Baako dragged him to court and he fell flat. Kweku Baako came out and said, he's loud mouth for nothing, he's very empty. Not my words. What Kennedy Agyapong does is to find out who you are sleeping with, whose wife you once dated, and then he comes, and that's his evidence. He most of the time would not go into the content of the issue. He rather looks at your personal life. What drugs you smoked some time ago, how your father's saw is so smelly, everybody's running away from this person. How your mother was a prostitute in 1700. These are the things I hear Kennedy Agyapong saying. Of course, sometimes he says things that impress me too. You see, everybody has the right to speak truth to power, as he said. Fear nobody. Speak truth to power, even if it will affect you. The same spirit that he says he has, we have it too. When you are going to equity, go with what? Clean hands. The story lingers on. Anas, Armiyahu Anas, has fallen flat. But, should I say it? He's going to appeal. I spoke with Anas Armiyahu Anas's lawyer, and he says, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We are appealing. In fact, this judgment, we have heard it, we respect the courts, but it stinks. That's what I think. It stinks. I don't see any justice in there. That's what I think. That's what I think. With all respect, the courts have said it. But as citizens, we have the right to disagree. I disagree. Anas might be corrupt. But in this case, we saw everything right. If you have any evidence of Anas's corruption presented, they presented who watches the watchman. And they claim that it is enough evidence to show that Anas Armiyahu is. I saw who watches the watchman. I didn't see that. Maybe I'm visually impaired. Come